What's going on, family? I'd like to welcome everybody back to the Atheist channel. I told y'all before my first part series, I'm going to make this like a 4-part series on the Quran and straight bullshit. And I'm going to get off into some textual things today. And some more plagiarism by Muhammad, man, to actually show that Muhammad was basically, he was not a prophet. But we got billions of Muslims who believe this stuff, man. And I'm sorry for hurting your feelings, man, but I'm unapologetic when it comes to truth and facts. So I just got to keep it real. I have plenty of Muslim friends and some Muslim family, but we just got to keep it real right here, fam, and just show y'all that the Quran from history. We're gonna show y'all with facts from history that the Quran is a bunch of crap. It was a made-up book. Muhammad was not probably as literate as Islamic folklore say he was, because as I said as in my last video, my first video I made of Quran and straight bullshit, I showed where a lot of the stories of Jesus' mother Mary, having birth up under the palm tree, eating from the palm tree, and the spring of water popping up, how these things came from ancient Jewish folklore and Christian apocrypha. And I spoke on the verses in Surah 5, in the Quran, where Jesus made these clay birds. All these things coming from the infancy of the Gospel of Thomas, the Arabic infancy of Jesus, the Savior, the Proto-Evangelium of James, and a lot of these stories coming from apocryphal books that was known in the Arabian Peninsula during this particular time, and Jewish folklore. And I got even a few more things to share on that today as far as the history, and just showing and proving that the Quran was not an authentic work from some all-knowing God, some God that when Muhammad went in his cave, he just got all these spiritual knowledge, from this God and these special stories. Well, the truth of the matter is none of these stories are special. They've been around, and I'm gonna go through some more just to show that the Quran is not authentic. And the ideas of this particular Prophet Muhammad, whoever he was not authentic. And basically, Prophet Muhammad was a charlatan of his day. He was good, just like you have charlatans of the day. I mean, you got plenty of charlatans today. A lot of them, come with knowledge, and they fake. They pedophiles. You know what I mean? They money scammers, scheming out your money. It's all the same thing. Ain't nothing new up under the sun. So I'm going to show that again today. So I'm going to start, well, actually, I'm going to read a Quranic verse first. And I was going to use some slides for this video, but I'll say that for part 3. But that's why I'm going to take my time so y'all can follow me and write these particular verses down in the Quran so you can go and show and prove this to yourself and find your own evidence and find information. But I'm just going to read this in Quran, Surah 8:31. And it says, when our signs are rehearsed to them, they say, we have heard this before. If we could say words like these are nothing but tales of the ancients. Well, in actuality, this is like Allah talking to Muhammad or whatever. And he's talking about how the Pale Arabs were saying that we done heard these stories before. In actuality, they have, because it was all falsified. And Prophet Muhammad just used these particular stories and tried to make them seem like there's something new from Allah. But even the Quran itself bears witness that the pagan Arabs that he was teaching to had already heard this garbage. And it was garbage that Prophet Muhammad was reiterating. He was recanting it. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to read that particular verse from the Quran because it's really ironic. But the first thing I'm going to start with is a story in the Quran. Then I'm going to get on the crucifixion thing too. Because like I said in the last video, that's a dilemma. And that's a paradox when it comes to the crucifixion of Jesus. And the reason I'm comparing that, because we know that in Christianity, that is the basis. That is the strongest foundation of being a Christian, that you believe that this Jesus Christ died for your sins. Well, in contrast to that, the Quran says that it didn't happen. And then I'm going to the history of the Gnostics and how the Gnostics felt about physical resurrection, or how they felt about the resurrection of Christ, and what they actually said within the Gnostic Gospels, and show how the Quran, how Muhammad got his idea, particularly from the Gnostic Gospel, and his whole idea of the physical versus the spiritual. This thing is really serious. And because there's so many people believing in this nonsense, this bullshit called Islam, and people killing people because over this Quran and over Islam. You know, I mean, Christians had their time of killing and conversion by the sword. But this day and time, it's like Islam is the forefront of it. You know, you don't believe in the Quran, they call you apostate. So they call you, if you used to be a Muslim or you change an apostate or you're an infidel, all different type names these clowns call you, because they believe that they're going to go to heaven with some virgins, as Surah 4:57 say. They believe they're going to be whisked off into some heaven with some gardens, with water flowing up, this bullshit that's in the Quran. Surah 4:57, and they actually believe it. Tell you that. It tells you that, as a matter of fact, let me read that verse. It says, we will admit you into heaven where virgins or companions who haven't been touched, with gardens underneath which rivers flow. That's Pickall, it don't matter which one version you mean, Yusuf Ali. So these people actually believe in these things, and I don't know why virgin would be like so important to them, but I guess that's something Allah, he want to make sure all his people, have sex. So what do the women get when they go to heaven? That's be a question you should ask Islamic scholars. What do the women get? Do they get virgin men? Or is it just a male chauvinistic type thing? Only people get reward are the men. So I guess, but that's something that Muslims never think about, I guess. It's just like all your verses are geared towards horny old men, but something is kind of eerie about that. Muslims should ask, well, what do the women get? They get Magic Mike type shows. What's going on with that? But the thing, the first thing I was going to touch on, and basically speaking about, it's a story in the Quran that most all Muslim scholars consider to be Alexander the Great. And we all know Alexander the Great from history. The information that we do have on Alexander the Great, we all know was a ruler of Grecian Empire, very, very popular historical person. But the thing about this particular story, the Quran speaks about, in Surah 18, by the way, there's a particular character called Dhul al-Qanan. And like I say, all scholars and most scholars say that this particular Dhul al-Qanan is Alexander the Great. Well, in the Quran, it says, in the verse, it says that this particular Dhul al-Qanan say that he traveled so far west that he found where the sun had set. Now, this is in Quran, Surah 18, called Al-Kahf, the cave. You can go and read that, find the story of Dhul al-Qanan. It's a very popular story in the Quran. But the thing about this, first of all, let's deal with what the verse says. The verse says that Dhul al-Qanan, who is Alexander the Great, according to Muslim jurists and Muslim scholars, said that he traveled so far west that he found where the sun was set. Now, first of all, let's deal with that bullshit statement. We know damn well no one can travel so far west they can find where the sun is set. Whether you want to say it was allegorical, metaphorical, whatever, we know it's bullshit. No one has ever found that. So let's deal with that first. But the ironic thing about this particular story is that, and once again, Muslims believe that the Quran was divinely inspired to Muhammad from this Allah. But the thing about this particular story can be found is an Assyric work called The Glorious Deeds of Alexander the Great, which is 150 years older than the Quran. And this story was known to have been known to go around that particular part of Arabia, of Yemen, and all of the eastern parts of that shore of the Indian, of the Indian Ocean, and the parts of that world during that particular time. This was a very popular story, just like the Proto-Evangelium of James, the Gospel of Thomas, the pseudo Gospel of Matthew, in which Prophet Muhammad borrowed all these other stories. But a lot of people, mainly Muslims, never heard of these stories. They never heard of these books. This is why I'm doing the research to bring this out. And I want you to go back and go behind me, and so you can see for yourself. Once again, the name of that is it's a Syriac word. It's a Syriac word called The Glorious Deeds of Alexander. And you will see this same story about Alexander the Great traveling, so his travels, and you compare the same stories. Basically, ideology has been copied word for word that's been put in Surah 18 about Dhul al-Qanan, the same thing that's in this Syriac work called The Glorious Deeds of Alexander. Now in the Quran, this is another ironic thing. This is why you know it was a copycat. The Quran doesn't call him Alexander the Great, but every Muslim scholar, you pick up Yusuf Ali, who was one of the most popular translators of Quran, Yusuf Ali. You pick up a Shakir, a Muhammad Pickthall. Google it. Any Islamic scholar from Ahmad Didat all the way to the modern scholars today, even before, said Dul al-Qanan was Alexander the Great. Why? Why would they think that? Alexander, as far as the history of Alexander the Great goes, Alexander the Great was never known to be Muslim. He was never known to really even be really religious. So what would make them think that Dul al-Qanan or Allah was talking about Dul al-Qanan? Only reason they would think that is because Muhammad stole this story directly from the Syriac book, which was called The Glorious Deeds of Alexander. So this is why they know this, and this is why they tie the story in, because this is nothing special from Allah in the Quran. It's a book or a mythical book that was already floating around about Alexander the Great, who's a real historical person, as far as we know. Then we come to Surah 18, same surah. For those who are not familiar, it's a story in Surah 18, Al-Kahf, same surah, called The Companions of the Cave. Now, this is I used to love this story myself, a good story, but it always seemed mythical to me, but it's just a good story. And then the story in the Quran, it speaks about these boys or young men that probably had a dog with them that was trying to escape some type of persecution. And so they went into this cave. The Quran is kind of ambiguous on it, and I'm explaining why the Quran has so much ambiguity towards it. I explain that after I get the other thing out. But the Quran says that it may have been 3 of them, may have been 5 of them, may have been 7 of them, and then it says it may have been a dog. But it's ambiguous on it. But the moral of the story in the Quran about the companions of the cave is that they was in this cave for like 300 years. They went in the cave and then they went to sleep, they prayed, blah blah blah, and then when they woke up, it was 300 years later. And then, the Quran goes on and so forth to say that no one really knows, the mystery of it, but Allah knows, blah, 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 blah. And they were still the same age. Over this 300-year period, their clothes didn't age, they didn't age. So this was a miracle, showing some type of miracle from Allah. Well, this story is also a copycat that Prophet Muhammad used and put his own type of twist on it. This story was first created, this was probably like 200 years or so before Prophet Muhammad had the Quran. And it was Bishop Stevens of Ephesus. It was called The 7 Sleepers of Ephesus, or Ephesus. And you go and read this story. Matter of fact, the Orthodox Church, the Orthodox Roman Church, still pays homage to these so-called 7 sleepers. And in this particular story, the same story, it happened during the time in the 3rd century under Emperor Decius, who was anti-Christian during that time. And so, Emperor Decius told anybody, he said, if y'all don't pay tribute to our God and bring presents to him, we're going to kill you, da da da. So the story is that these seven youth, they ran into the cave because they didn't want to do that, because Emperor Decius was threatening to kill them. So they ran to the cave, and according to this particular story, they was in the cave 200 years. So that's the differentiation between the Quran story and the original story by Bishop Stevens. They was in the cave 200 years, and when they came out of the cave, there was another emperor of Rome, which these are actual historical emperors, Emperor Theodosius. And by this time, Christianity had become the religion of Rome, so it was cool. So the people found the 7 sleepers, and they came out, and these 7 sleepers supposedly came and talked to Bishop Stevens, and this was the myth and the legend that carried on. And this myth was all throughout the peninsula of Arabia as well. And Prophet Muhammad only took that particular story and myth and put it in the Bible and put Allah on it, put his own Islamic twist on it. So I want y'all to go and look that up. Go and read Surah 18 by the Companions of the Cave. Then go and research Bishop Stevens of Ephesus or Ephesus. And you will see exactly what I mean by the 7 companions. You will see the straight plagiarist story, how Prophet Muhammad only took this particular story and put it in the Quran. Nothing special about that story in the Quran. Nor the story about Dhul al-Qanan, who's supposed to be Alexander the Great. Then I come upon another story, Surah 531. You go to and write this down. Surah 531. In Surah 531, it speaks about Cain. You know, supposed to be the biblical Cain and Abel, brother of Abel, the sons of the mythical Adam and Eve. Well, in Surah 531, it says that Allah sent a bird or a raven to teach Cain or teach Adam and Eve how to bury Abel. Well, and you go on, you know, it speaks about it because they act like, you know, they was dumb and they didn't know, you know, after Cain killed Abel, they didn't know how to bury him properly. So instead of Allah just telling them how to do it, he sent a bird to teach them, which don't make no damn sense in the first place, but we're going to follow the story. Okay. Well, anyway, he sends a bird to teach him how to bury Abel. Well, this is not an original story either. Prophet Muhammad also plagiarized this. He was a great plagiarizer. I have to give him props for that. He could copy stuff and put his own twist on it. And this story was found in Jewish folklore, very popular Jewish folklore, but specifically in Midrash Tanhuma. And in the Midrash Tanhuma, it's the same story. God was talking to Adam and Eve, and they was talking the burial of Abel. It came up, and so Yahweh sent a raven to teach them how to bury Abel. See, none of these stories in the Old Testament, but these are found in Jewish folklore, stuff that the Jews don't even accept as really real or being authentic. But Prophet Muhammad took the garbage of Christian and Jewish literature, things they didn't even accept, and he put in the Quran and made it into a revelation like it was from the same God, Allah. And this was something that he did a lot. So like I said, Surah 531 talks about the bird teaching Cain or Adam and Eve how to bury Abel. It's found in the Midrash, the Jewish folklore, the Midrash Tanhuma. That's Midrash, Midrash, Tanhuma, Tanhuma. Go look it up. And you will see exactly, you can Google it and you'll see the story. It'll take you right to it. And, you know, it's just kind of strange how these particular things are not like on the main front of, as far as dealing with Quranic text. You know, you see a lot of people, a lot of things on the Bible text, things that are missing out of the Bible, things that are contradiction out of the Bible. But the Quranic text don't seem to be, or the history of the Quran don't seem to be attacked as much. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to try to change that a little bit because Quran is bullshit too. And people are serious about this religion, and it causes, it's causing an imbalance, you know, man, in human thinking as well. I think people should be aware of what they believe in, because, you know, what you believe in is actually, and what you think is actually, you know, what you do, how you go about your life. And if you got grown people still believing in stuff like this, I mean, anything can happen. You know what I mean? I mean, things worse than 9/11 can happen. People believing in stuff like this because they feel like, well, hey, I can do this because when I die and go to heaven, I'm going to wake up with a bunch of virgins. I mean, this is the crazy stuff they believe in, and they don't understand that the stuff they believe in coming from a 7th century fraud. Prophet Muhammad, he was a fraud. This video, I was going to speak on some of the scientific contradictions of the Quran, because, man, over the years, you know, it's kind of like strange how many Muslims, you know, they make claims, and I know y'all done heard this the crazy stuff come out of Muslims' mouth. You probably seen on YouTube or in debates where a Muslim will say, a Muslim scholar or a Muslim layman will be quick to say, well, the Quran has to be the word of God because there were scientific things that Muhammad did or Muhammad said in the Quran that he did before science even found it out. Okay, first of all, let me tell you that that's unadulterated bullshit. There's nothing in the Quran that was preconceived by Prophet Muhammad that science found out later. And let me say this. Let me say this for the record. You know, because a lot of people don't know how science works. Science doesn't come up with a theory first and then try to find the data to back up that theory. That's not how science works. Science actually has to observe something. They observe. We observe something. We observe a thing. We contain the facts and the evidence of a thing. Then we try to find the best theory that fits that what we found. That's how science works. Science objectivity, scientific objectivity. That's how science works. You don't create a theory and then try to go and find the stuff that's what Muslims do when they make stupid claims like that. You got this theory in your Quran, a bunch of theories, a hypothesis in your Quran. Then you try to go and find the evidence that's been found and say, see, this is what Muhammad found. That's not the case. There are a lot of verses in the Quran, countless verses, ayats in the Quran, that goes strictly against science, and that shows Prophet Muhammad to be what he was, a 7th century Arab uneducated man that made stupid. And I'm gonna give one example in this video, and in my next video I'm just gonna straight smash that all the way up. But in one particular verse, Surah 71:16. 71:16 deals with the heavens, and it talks about the moon and light. And he say, and we made the moon therein a light, and the sun a lamp. Now, and then also in that same verse, in that same surah, it speaks about how we made the 7 heavens, and he talks about how the moon was in the midst of the 7 heavens, and the stars was in the lower heaven. I want y'all to go to this surah 71:16 and just read this garbage. But I want to clear something up right here. First of all, the moon is not a light. This is what Prophet Muhammad thought, though, because he's a 7th century Arab, didn't know any better. He said that the moon was a light and the sun a lamp. First of all, anybody, a 3rd grader, it reminds me of the show Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader? A 3rd grader knows that the moon does not have its own light, nor does it emit its own light. But the light of the moon that we see with our physical eyes is the light that's coming from the sun. We're just on a rotation on the other part of at night on the other part of the earth at that time, and we can't see the sun shining. But everything that we see, the brightness of the moon that we see, is light from the sun. But of course, Prophet Muhammad and the Arabs of the 7th century didn't know that. So he just put in his Quran and told the people that Muhammad told me that the moon was a light. Well, if Allah told him that, then Allah is stupid, because we know that the moon is not a light. It's only a rock. It's only a rock that gets light from the sun and reflects off, makes it seem like it's light. Another thing is it speaks about 7 heavens. I don't know what the hell. I don't know how the hell you could interpret 7 heavens. I mean, it's strange. A lot of Islamic scholars, Arabic scholars, and heaven, and what they say in the Quran is heavens. What they mean, damn heavens. But this is the contradiction with that, and what we know to be in astronomy, and what we know to be scientific fact and evidence. First of all, the closest star to the Earth is our sun, a yellow dwarf star, and that's 93 million miles away. The moon is closer than that. We have galaxy upon galaxy upon galaxy. There's over 200 billion probably galaxies in the universe, some of them in clusters. Our Milky Way is a part of a cluster, a small cluster. We have Andromeda, which is the biggest galaxy in our cluster. We have galaxy upon galaxy upon galaxy, stars billions of miles away. Even the ones that we can physically see with our eyes are so far away. And some of them we can't see, we have to see through a telescope. But the Quran says that the moon was made in the midst of these heavens. But he says stars were made in the lower heavens. So according to the Quran, and the Arabic linguistics can't fix it up. According to the Quran, the stars are closer to the earth than the moon is. Now y'all know that's dumb as shit, because the closest star that we have is our sun. We have no other stars. But this is the point I'm making. This is the mind of a 7th century Arab who didn't know any better. From looking up and him walking across the desert every day, he looking up, he see these stars. He think they're close. He think this is some type of lower heaven, and there's a higher heaven. When in actuality, there's planets, suns, clusters of galaxies upon clusters of galaxies that we can't even find. What the hell is heaven? What heaven are you talking about? And for those of you Muslims who say, oh, well, maybe he's talking about the stratosphere and the ionosphere. No, hell he's not. No, hell he's not. Because the moon is not in none of them, and none of the stars in none of them. So don't justify that with that bullshit. Do not commit intellectual suicide. So I'm just going to point out that one particular verse in that. And, well, I'm going to use one more just to show the absurdity of the Quran and the stupidity of the Quran. You go to like Surah 231. Surah 231, you should know about hard off the rip. But Surah 231, it says, this is Allah. It says, and Allah taught Adam all the names of the animals. And yeah, is that the verse? Yeah, that's Surah 231. It says where Adam was taught all the names, and I'm just paraphrasing, but that's Surah 231. Where Allah taught Adam, you know, this is the Surah, the time where Iblis or Satan or whatever you want to call him, Lucifer, pick your name, it don't matter. Frankenstein, whatever you want to call him, same character. Where Adam, he was letting the angels know he was creating Adam, and he wanted the angels to bow down to him. Oh, and that's another story that was copycatted too. I forgot about that. There's another story that was copycatted. I'm gonna get off into that too in this video. But anyway, in Surah 2, in these particular verses, he wanted the angels to bow down to Adam because Adam was this new creation, had the breath of God in him, and Iblis or Satan bucked on it. But anyway, he said he told Adam all the names of every animal that was made. Now, just a thinking person, a logical person, whether you're religious or not, you have to know first of all that there are over 1.8 million different species on the planet that we know of. You know, we haven't found all the species yet. Over 1.8 million species. And not to mention all the species that already went extinct. So this means Allah had to tell him a whole bunch of damn names. How long did this take for him to tell all the names of all these species? What animals are you talking about? Over 1.8 million different species, and Allah gave Adam all the names, and angels wanted to ask him, hey, what was the names, man? We don't know. Come on, y'all. Y'all know that's straight comic book bullshit. Think about it. And if you think about all of the animals that, or the species that went extinct, then Allah gave Adam hundreds of millions of names probably. So I mean, just common sense stuff. It doesn't take a person with a 180 IQ to figure this stuff out. I mean, it don't take a genius to figure this stuff out. This stuff is made up, man. It's bullshit. Think about it. Oh yeah. Back to Iblis. Those of you who've never read that, go to Quran, read Surah 2. Like I say, these stories are totally different from the fall of Lucifer in the Bible, or what people think is the fall of Lucifer in the Bible, which is really not. But I'll get into that story when I get back on the Bible series. But the stories are different. When you go to Quran Surah 2, it talks about him when Allah made Adam, and Allah asked the angels to bow down to Adam, to give him reverence, to give him respect. And Iblis was like, what? Man, I'm not finna bow down to him, man. You made me a pure fire. He said, you made him a mud. You're like, what the hell I look like bowing down to him? I'm better than him. Well, so forth, Allah got mad and said, okay, well, you one of the ones who rejected. You don't reject it. And that's basically what Iblis means, ones who reject. So I'm going to kick you out of heaven. So this is the Quranic story of Iblis, or Satan, getting kicked out of heaven because he didn't want to bow down to Adam. But now, the story, the biblical legend is different. Blah, 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 It's a bunch of bullshit legends with the biblical story too that's not really biblical, but we'll talk about that later. But this is the Quranic story, which is in the Quran. Well, guess what? Unless you already guessed it. This is not an original story. No, hell it's not. This, if you've never heard of the Gospel of Bartholomew, of those of you who are familiar with the New Testament, you know that Bartholomew was one of the disciples of the so-called Jesus Christ. Well, this is the Gospel of Bartholomew, and it's considered a Christian apocrypha. But if you go to chapter 4, verses 53 through 56 in the Gospel of Bartholomew, you'll see that it shows a direct copycat story. Satan and Bartholomew is talking, and Satan is telling him that the conversation that he had with the archangel Angel Michael, and same exact story. He said that when God created Adam, he wanted me to bow down to him. And Michael said, man, you should bow down to him, because if you don't, you're going to make God mad. And Satan told Satan, who, according to the Gospel of Bartholomew, his name was Satanael in the beginning. Okay, and then it just became Satan. Because a lot of the names in the Bible, angels, had El on it, because El is actually a deification name, which comes from the Canaanite god El. Just like you see a lot of the prophets in the Bible. Daniel, all these mean something of El. Israel, all these are Indian names of God. You know what I mean? Anyway, the story in the Gospel of Bartholomew, I just gave you chapter 4, 53. Just look it up. Look it up, Gospel of Bartholomew, and look up the story of Satan's fall and why he didn't want to bow down to Adam. And you'll see that it's exact copycat of what Prophet Muhammad put in Surah 2 in the Quran about Iblis or Satan not wanting to bow down to Adam. Same copycat story. Same copycat story. Then, and once I said I was going to get back to the crucifixion story. When you get back to the crucifixion story, everybody know that, that's the foundation of Christianity, is to believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins. And, he shed blood for the world and all that bull crap. Okay, well, in the Quran, and this is the big argument between Muslims and Christians. Well, the Quran in Surah 4, Al-Nisa, the woman, strictly denies that. It says straight up, it says that Jesus, and I'm going to give you the wording of it. I have my Quran right here, my verse. But it says that they, the Jews, say that they brag and boast about the Son of Mary, Jesus, being killed on the cross. But it says that he was not killed on the cross, but we only made it appear. We. What do you mean by we? This is like a connotation of English that's used in Quran, and they try to, make it seem like, oh, it's still one God. But that's just something that they use in Quran. They use we a lot. But it says that, but we made it look like it was him, but it was. In other words, this Quranic verse is saying that the Jews or the Romans, whoever, thought they killed Jesus, but in actuality, they didn't. It just appeared like it. In their eyes, they thought they was actually crucifying Jesus, but they didn't. Well, when you go to the Gnostic Gospels, and for those who are not familiar with the Gnostics, I'm going to do a video just on who the Gnostics are, who the Ebionites are, who the Athanasians were, who the Arians were. All of these groups are very important to religious history and Christian history, because, a lot of people, you hear a lot of people on YouTube and a lot of people in the base always talking about Constantine, but they never really tell all the real historical things of what happened with Constantine. And a lot of people don't explain the Nicene Creed like it's really supposed to be explained. But the Nicene Creed, that was a lot that went into this Nicene Creed in the 4th century, 325 AD, CE, excuse me. And this Nicene Creed was a big switching point for Christianity and the things that were put in Christianity. But not to lose the point, the crucifixion story of Jesus in the Bible and in the Quran, totally different. One says he died on the cross, and of course the story, you have people like William Lane Craig claim they can prove the resurrection, but they can't. It's garbage, it's a lie, it's not historical, it's religious, that's it. But then the Quran says he didn't. But then when you go to the Gnostic tablets, which the Gnostic just mean knowledge. The term Gnostic mean knowledge. Gnostics were a group, and the reason I mentioned Constantine and Nicene Creed, because the Gnostics had to kind of go under. When the Nicene Creed was put into effect, if you rejected the Nicene Creed, that was made a law, which was actually an Athanasian creed, then you had to just be quiet, which the Gnostics did, but the Ebionites, the Arians, they got ousted or got killed. So the Gnostics kind of laid low for centuries. I mean, they had a lot of tablets. And the only reason honestly that we even know about the Gnostics at this day and time, because of what happened in 1948 when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, the Nag Hammadi Scrolls, when they were found in the Dead Sea. Probably if it wasn't for that finding, we probably wouldn't even have any idea who the Gnostics was, because, like I said, the Nicene Creed, when that particular creed was set in 325 CE under Constantine, that was law. That was it. And if you went against that or disagree with that, you probably get your head cut off. But anyway, the Gnostics wrote about the crucifixion, And the Gnostics didn't believe in a physical resurrection. They were more rational. Like, you know, they were more reasonable people. And they said that the same exact thing that the Quran says, issues in 4157. They said that basically that the crucifixion of Jesus was an illusion. And when Peter is a conversation within this text that you can find this text, it's easy to find, the crucifixion Gnostic text. Jesus was laughing, saying that they thinking that they crucifying me, but they're not crucifying me. But you know, some scholars say, well, you know, they're speaking about Jesus saying that they crucified the physical body, but they really didn't. They really crucified the spiritual body. However that argument goes, the Gnostic text is clear that it was like some type of substitute was made, and this is where the Quran comes in at, and this is how they tie in. You knew that Muhammad was looking at these texts or understood these texts to some degree because he said the exact same thing that the Gnostic text was saying. The Gnostic text was saying that it just seemed like they thought they was killing Jesus, but they really didn't. Then Muhammad come and write in Surah 4157 that it appeared like they killed Jesus on the cross, but they really didn't. We just made it seem that way. And it's ambiguous, I must admit. It's ambiguous and it's bullshit. But when you go and actually and understand the paradox of the crucifixion, and you actually go in and read the verses and you put them side by side, you be like, damn, Prophet Muhammad was a damn plagiarist. He stole this concept too. So, you know, and I got a lot more, man. Like I said, I got more videos coming on the Quran and straight bullshit. So I'm not done with this at all. Like I said, I'm just getting started on this, because there's a lot more information study coming out day by day on it. Oh yeah, man, and shout out to the brother Ricky Hood too. The brother's a scholar himself. But like I say, man, I'm going to end this video here, because I got a lot of more videos coming. Man, I want y'all to like and share my videos. I appreciate the support. Thanks for subscribing to the Emperor Atheist channel. Tell your friends and family about it, your religious friends, any friends. I don't care. Bring them on. Bring your preacher. They want to debate. We can debate anytime, anywhere. I don't care. Bring your pastors. Bring your imams. Bring your dogs, your cats. Whoever want to debate the Emperor Atheist, y'all can do it, because y'all know I ain't going to bring nothing but the heat. So just tell them to come on with it. We can do a live, stream it, whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? But the information going to get to you. So I just want to say, man, like I said once again, thanks to all my subscribers. Like and share my videos. You know, hey, ask me anything you want in the comments. You know what I mean? Because one thing about it, man, you know, everybody's still learning. When you think you got it all, that's when you made a mistake. That's when you're failing, when you think you know it all. But once again, man, it's the Emperor Atheist. Peace out.